On today's podcast, the featured voice is Casey Washack, the founder of Fit in 42. He's going to share how to create a solid foundation to your fitness journey. I want to thank you for joining my podcast. Is the voices, because I think the voices are really, really important. We have social media everywhere, but social media often doesn't allow people to kind of get their voices out and be conversational. It's about get your opinion out, and everyone else's may not matter. But I've just been doing my research on the stuff you've been doing. I think it's awesome what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man.
So, what I saw is that you are a U.S. veteran, similar to myself. You were in the real military, as my Marine friends will say to me, as you were in the Marines, and I was in the Air Force. And you're also an entrepreneur, a family man, and a fitness enthusiast. So I think that's a really, really well-rounded thing to make you connectable to every single person that's in the world that will listen to this and will learn about what you're doing. And I think that'll lead to a great deal more prosperity than you already have.
I appreciate that, man. And I've learned you don't insult the podcast host, even if they were in the Air Force. So,
well,
you're the man with the mic, so I.
Well, it's funny because I'm in a couple of expat military veteran groups here in Colombia, and I get Air Force jokes all the time. But I appreciate it because I have family and friends in other branches, and it's a brotherhood there that exists that. You can only do that internally, and it's really a family, and so I appreciate it because you could not make fun, right?
Well, no, you're absolutely right, because it's like, you can razz your family, but if an outsider razzes your family, you're like, hey, hold up.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
exactly.
Internally, like you were saying, branch to branch, apparently I eat crayons. And but if somebody who hasn't served tries to make a comment, we all have each other's back, which is pretty cool.
Now, and I will give Marines a specific compliment because I have friends from every branch. But down here in Colombia, I have a friend who is a Marine veteran as well. And what I've seen is when Marines leave the Marines, they really are really in the community. They're really like men of the people and women of the people. They're out there. Like I have a friend who does recruiting for English teachers in South America and across the world. And I've met Marines who do things for the community. So as much as the jokes are of that exist about Marines, you all are really really about the soil of the earth people. And I want to give that compliment because even within the inner circle, there's jokes about, intelligence, but there's a lot of intelligence there.
Yeah. I never made that correlation, and I think that's really interesting what you just said. But yeah, I mean, I know people who are like registered geniuses who decided to join the Marine Corps and decided to be, 03 infantry, just because that's what, that's really what they inspired them, and that's the route they wanted to go to serve their country. Now, as a dad, as a parent now, I don't know where I stand as far as, because I was a grunt as well. And do I want my son on the front lines? And especially, in the political climate where a lot of there is no good guy, bad guy anymore. It's interests, and so it's like, do I want my son or daughter on the front lines, or would I like them to get some job skills like in the Navy, Air Force, and leave the military with some sort of skills that they can use outside the military? So, I mean, I got a long time. My kids are 7 and 5, but that's definitely on my mind.
And so that actually leads me to my next question, because I'll touch on the military again in another portion. But as a family man, what was your inspiration towards your entrepreneurial goal? Because to be an entrepreneur in itself is, that to use I guess a popular word, is scary. And with responsibilities to a family, what made you believe that being an entrepreneur, and we'll talk specifically about your business in a moment, but what made you feel like that was the best route for you to go, instead of, a lot of people who leave the military get headhunters from the military, and the military normally assist you with the transition to assistance programs where they help you find work with contractors and et cetera. But you chose the route of entrepreneur. So what led you that way?
All right. So first, it was ingrained in me as a kid. My brother and I had lemonade stands. We would mow lawns. We would wash cars. We would rake leaves. We would shovel snow. I think the craziest thing we did, so we grew up on the East Coast. And if you're an East Coaster, you vacation in Florida. So what we would do as kids is we would bring butterfly nets and fish tanks down to Florida with us, and we would catch all the little lizards and that are run around everywhere, and then bring them back up to New Jersey and sell them to pet stores. And it all stemmed because our dad gave us an allowance, like most kids get. I think our allowance was $10, but the things I wanted always cost more than $10. We were baseball card and comic book fiends. And so when it was just constantly drilled in us, like, if you want more, go get more. And so then fast forward to the military. So that was always already in me. And, I was in from 97 to 2001 in the Marine Corps. And at the time, this is before September 11th, at the time, the military they had a bad rap. People weren't as friendly as they are today towards the military. And I'll say our pay back then wasn't as good as it is now. It's still every service member is still underpaid, but not to the extent we were. And I guarantee you, if I talk to a Vietnam vet, they would smack me across the mouth right now with what I'm saying, how I'm complaining about the pay, but it was even less for them. So I did the same thing in the Marine Corps. I think an entrepreneur is just really a problem solver, and they just look around and they see the problems that are present, and they solve them. They plug holes. So in the military, in the Marine Corps, I was in the infantry, which is an all male part of the Marine Corps right now. And so in the barracks, what do? After work, we start having some pizza, we start drinking some beer. But unfortunately, the PX, or like the 7-Eleven on base, is a mile away. Well, now you're hungry. It's 9 p.m. and you're hungry, and you've already had a couple beers in you, and you can't drive.
Exactly.
So what you do is you go to Casey's room, and Casey has Hot Pockets. Casey has sodas. Casey has hot dogs. Casey has candy bars. Casey sold toilet paper, $5 a roll. Because when you're knocking on my door at midnight for toilet paper, you absolutely need it.
Yes.
So I could charge whatever I wanted. And so I made more money running a 7-Eleven out of my room while I was a Marine than actually being a Marine. And ultimately, that's what led to me deciding to leave the military. I absolutely loved being a Marine. I loved my job. I was a machine gunner, and I was one of the battalion close combat instructors. But I left the Marine Corps as an E5, which is a sergeant. And the prerequisite for an E6 is I have to be a sergeant for 4 years. So there is no way. I do not like limits. And I do not like people telling me you have to put this amount of time in before you're even considered for a promotion.
Oh, I understand. Yes.
And so I knew for the next 4 years I was stuck at $1,700 a month as a single sergeant in the Marine Corps. And I said, I can start a McDonald's tomorrow. And in 4 years, I'll own that place.
Right.
So what am I doing? Like, I want more. I absolutely loved what I was doing. Like I said, in the Marine Corps, I just for where I envisioned my life going and what I wanted, I realized that my time in the service had ended. And so I got out, and I'll tell you, I got out, I started personal training. I trained at a gym. Once again, I was an independent contractor, meaning I could work 1 hour a day. I could work 20 hours a day. It's really up to me what I wanted to make. And so I loved that challenge. And so I got out in 2001. In 2006, my brother and I decided to open up our first gym. Now, I had just gotten married, too. And the next 4 years, I did not make a paycheck. I did not bring home a steady paycheck. So I kind of did like the biggest bait and switch with my wife. Because when I was dating her and I was the independent contractor, meaning I had no overhead, it's just if I trained somebody at your gym, I paid you a little bit of rent, and I got to keep everything else. I didn't have to pay, electricity. I didn't have to pay, water, utilities. It was just whenever I trained for the hour, I paid that owner $10. And I charged whatever I wanted. So then all of a sudden, I meet my wife, I'm wining her, I'm dining her, I'm taking her out all the time. And then my brother and I decided to open a gym, and that all ceased. And so for the next 4 years, my wife held me up. And eventually we ended up,
That's great.
She was a school teacher, and, she's always been super supportive of my goals and my dreams. But I'll be honest, she signed up because she loved me. And then I took her on this roller coaster. So I definitely don't want to paint the picture like you jump and then you just start crushing it, because we ended up going out of business in 2010.
Oh, wow.
And my brother and I, when we opened our gym, before we opened our gym, we had bought a house together. And in 2009, we had a decision to make. Things were going so bad. Do we pay our mortgage, or do we try to keep our dream alive? So we decided to keep our dream alive. So we ended up losing that house. And then we still couldn't keep the dream alive. And so we ended up folding and basically just turning the keys over to a competitor. I walk into one of our competitors. I hand him the keys. I said, it's yours. Like, we can't keep it open. And luckily, he took it. And that gave us the opportunity to step back and see what we were doing wrong and reinvent ourselves. But I'll tell you, one of the keys, the absolute keys to us being where we're at now is the first 4 years I was in business that I did not have a paycheck. My brother and I were doing it on our own. We had no mentors. We had no outside help. We weren't a part of any masterminds, any groups. We were just throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall, hoping it worked. When we lost that business and got a chance to reinvent ourselves, we said, why don't we go hire people, go to the most successful gyms in California, in certain areas, and pay for their time and start picking their brain.
That makes sense.
So that absolutely catapulted us, because we learned the best practices of some of the best gyms in the world, and that catapulted us. And now, here we are today. We're a budding franchise. We have 4 locations right now. We have about 20 gyms that we consult with, and we teach them different systems.
10 to now, we're now, and then along the way, we put our own stamp on it. We're now turning around and helping other gym owners have more impact in their communities. So that's us in a nutshell.
Well, that's awesome, because I was doing my research, and I saw there were 25 different sites that you had available, or locations you had available. So those 25 locations are roughly either independently owned, the 4 independently owned, I'm assuming, or partnerships you have. Is that correct?
So we're constantly evolving. So those 25 you see, 4 of those are mine. And the other 25 are the 21 are gym owners who sought us out, who wanted to run some of our programs. So we took them under our wing and taught them our systems. And so basically, it's a license. I don't want to compare us to anybody, but the easiest comparison would be like CrossFit. You know, you
Okay.
learn their systems and things, and you run them. So it's kind of like that. But now what we're doing is we're evolving into a franchise, where one of the things I realized with the licensing that I didn't like is all the variables. I didn't like, and this goes with clients too. The whole idea to help somebody become successful, and when they hire a coach, the coach is supposed to control as many variables as possible in order to be able to predict where the client is going to end up. So this is the same thing with helping gym owners. So what we didn't like was we were helping them only in a couple facets of their business, and we realized that they need some people need help in all facets. And so what we decided to do is like, no, look, we're about to open our 5th gym out here in Texas. And, you know, we've opened a gym a year for the last 3 or 4 years. And some of the people I'm helping, most don't have that same growth. So why? Why don't they have that same growth? And it's only because we're only helping them in certain facets and not all facets.
And that actually leads me to my next question, because you mentioned gyms and fitness, and to some people that market is oversaturated, maybe because of the quick fixes. And so what inspired you to actually go into the fitness arena?
Well, that's a great question. So I got to get a little personal first. So family-wise, my brother and I came up in a household that was an absolute disaster. We've had 4 stepmoms. My mother died of a heroin overdose. So we're very familiar with 12-step programs, AA, Al-Anon, because both my parents were in and out trying to straighten out their lives. And we were put through the ringer as kids. So my escape was the Marine Corps. So I decided to join the Marine Corps to get as far away from that environment as possible. And while I was in the Marine Corps, I have all this time. Like I grew up playing sports, but I only worked out when my coaches told me to work out.
I understand that.
So during wrestling season, we went to the gym on Tuesdays, Thursdays. That's when I went to the gym. That's the only time I went to the gym. You know, baseball season, same thing. But now I'm a man in the Marine Corps. I go through boot camp. I loved boot camp. I loved the physicality of boot camp. And then now I'm at a boot camp, and I basically, unless we're going to run, you know, operations in the desert or something like that, I have a 9-to-5 job at
Yes.
18, 19 years old. So why not take some of this time and start improving myself physically? Because like I said, I loved the physicality of boot camp, and just your drill instructors, seeing if they can break you, and I really loved
Yes.
that aspect of it, and at the same time I knew boot camp was only 90 days, so you're not gonna break me, because I know there's a time limit. I know all I got to do is last 90 days, and you can throw anything at me, and I'll put up with it for 90 days. So I start working out in the Marine Corps. I end up joining the base wrestling team when I was stationed in Okinawa for a little bit. And one of my friends, I took him down, and then he threw me in a triangle, which is not a wrestling move. It's a jiu-jitsu move. And I was like, what the heck was that? And he's like, that's a triangle. And I was like, you need to teach me that. And so we started doing jiu-jitsu. Once I got back to the States, I started training in jiu-jitsu. My higher-ups saw this. They saw that I was constantly working out and doing jiu-jitsu. And so what ended up happening was, you being a veteran, you know that, like, when we go through boot camp, we come out like absolute machines. We're dialed in
Yes.
for that period of time. But then what happens is, after, people leave boot camp, even though we're Marines and airmen and things like that, the old bad habits start kicking back in. And
Yes.
and
Yes,
so
they do.
so they get off work, and they're watching movies, eating pizza, drinking beer, and all of a sudden, our primary goal, and my primary goal in the Marine Corps as a machine gunner, was to get to the fight. But we have to carry these big guns on our back. Now, little by little, some of my teammates can't get to the fight because they're out of shape now. And so my higher ups saw what I was doing after work, and they basically forced me to train the guys who needed more attention to their physicality. And so,
I guess without the extra duty pay,
no,
right?
yeah, and I got nothing for. They actually made me do it on my lunch hour on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so that's when I would take a little nap, and they took away my nap. So I was upset, and I punished these guys for 3 days a week. But little by little, they didn't have to come back to me anymore. And that's when, I mentioned earlier, I was running a 7-Eleven out of my room, so I'm making some good money. And one of my higher-ups came up to me and said, hey, man, I know you're getting out. I don't know. He's like, you're pretty good at this. I don't know if this is something you're looking into. Kind of sat back and started thinking about what I'm doing. And I love this. It's a big part of my life. But at the same time, I realized nobody's going to pay to get beat down 3 days a week. So maybe I need to start learning the science behind exercise and nutrition. And that's one of the things, as you mentioned earlier, the Marine Corps, or the military, is great about, is providing educational assistance. And so even though, like, I wasn't able to go to college, especially while I was still active duty, they had no problem paying for different courses for me to do and things like that, and continuing education and distance education, distance learning while I was still in. So when I got out, I realized I really loved helping people get back to where they should be. And a lot of times I saw things in them that they didn't even see. And so just learning how to relay that and saying, like, look, you're an athlete. You don't have an outlet right now, and so that's what got me into training itself. Now, what has separated us from everybody else was, what we were doing, what everyone else was doing, those first 4 years. And that's,
Okay.
we ended up going out of business. So when we stepped back and we went out of business, we said, like, one of the things that always, like, was like putting a knife in our heart is when one person would come in, we would create a roadmap for them, and they would do amazing. Similar person, another person came in with similar circumstances, same kind of lifestyle, height, weight, the same. And we'd give them a roadmap, and they would do absolutely nothing, or they would end up quitting. And it's like, all right, what can we do to help that person? Because some people, Lou, just need to start moving, and then they start tightening everything else up.
Yep, and the interesting thing, not to interrupt you, because it inspires me when I saw the quote on your website that and it kind of made me think of the 90-day thing you said about the Marines, and well, okay, I have my 90 days and I'm done. You have your quote, a 42-day life changing event designed to create those lifelong habits needed to fully transform your life. You're only 42 days away. And so I think that's really cool that you put that out there, because what inspired the 42 days specifically?
So,
Because that's really,
yes.
really specific.
So here's that's what I was starting to reference, was we started to look at, like, it's a horrible feeling for any coach. Like, we typically focus on our misses. Somebody loses 20 pounds. It's a high five. It's a hug. Awesome job. But when we go home, we're thinking about the person who quit on us, the person who disappeared, the person who we bumped into, who did great, but we bumped into them at the grocery store, and they look worse than when they started. So those are the ones that coaches tend to focus on. And they're like, damn it, like, how did I fail you? So that was, like, we went out of business for a reason. And so,
Right.
so it was like, why weren't we making the impact we should be making? And so looking back, and you already see the correlation, but there's another correlation. Looking back, we were like, you know what? There's no event in these people's lives like I had in the Marine Corps.
Yes.
And so the beautiful part about being a Marine is that event is like your gateway into this brotherhood that no one else is a part of. And so I to this day, I am still a Marine. I bump into 80-year-olds, and I notice a tattoo, and I say Semper Fi, and then all of a sudden we're talking. You know what I mean? There's this brotherhood that the only gateway to get into that brotherhood is through boot camp. So where is that? And that's a life-changing event. Where's that life-changing event for the average person? But on top of it, Lou, was the fact that my parents were so, like, drugs and alcohol were constantly coming back in their life. They just couldn't kick it. And so we're like, are you familiar with the Betty Ford Center?
I've heard of it. I know they help people with addictions,
Yes.
but I'm not firsthand.
So here's a beautiful thing, and just kind of struck us. The Betty Ford Center was in my hometown in California. And so we're like, all right, this is a place people go to where they say, you know what? I need help. And they basically live there under the Betty Ford Center's rules. And the Betty Ford Center dictates what they do. And they leave a different person. And so I'm like, where is the Betty Ford Center for health and fitness? And so,
I see. I like
using the Fit and 40, or using the Marine Corps, coupled with the Marine Corps boot camp, coupled with the Betty Ford Center, like, I wanted people leaving Fit and 42 feeling like I said, they changed their lives, but they did something a lot of the population has never even experienced, and they can walk around and feel a little taller. And then there's obviously ways, just like in the bumping into a veteran, like especially a Marine Corps veteran, where I could say, hey, Semper Fi, when were you in? So we created that aspect inside Fit and 42, where we call them 42ers. A 42er would be able to spot a fellow alumni. and be like, hey, I did it July of 2015. When did you do it? You know what I mean? So just using the experiences we had, but then bringing them to the fitness industry and making it like what we say in Fit and 42 is, look, you've been driving. Let's say you're a 50-year-old woman. I say, look, you've been driving for the last 50 years, and this is where we've gotten. So give me the keys. I'm driving now. All you got to do is follow. And
Right.
and so, interestingly enough, one of the things we always have to attack, because we say, give us 42 days and we'll change your life. We say you're only 42 days away. And I'm not telling you, and we make this really clear, if you're trying to lose 100 pounds, I promise you're not going to get there. Promise you. In 42 days, you're not going to lose 100 pounds. But you will have all the habits ingrained in you that you need to get there. And so one of my biggest worries, and whenever I see it on social media or I hear it in the gyms, is when someone's like, day 32, only 10 days left. I immediately have to address that person and say, hey, what happens on day 43? Like, what are you counting down to?
And that's interesting you say that, because my follow-up question was, and we can answer that after you finish, is, so what do they do? What do your 42ers do on day 43? Like, what happens for them after it's done? Because the existence of such programs, the existence of pinnacle moments in their life, like your 42-day program, gives them something. And if they're addicted to that, or they need that structure in their life, how do they go forward? So I'll let you finish,
Sure.
but I think that's a very interesting follow-up.
That's a great question. So yeah, I just want to finish what I'm trying to with that. When I notice people counting down, it's always a worry, because I feel like there hasn't been a shift. Like, because obviously, I wouldn't call it our meal plan, the way we tell people to eat, is restrictive compared to the average American. All right. So there's no pizza and beer on the Fit and 42 meal plan, because what we're doing is we're focusing our sights on goals, and everything we do to reach those goals are either serving us or pulling us away from those goals. So when I see someone counting down, that scares me. And so what I have to tell them is, like, look, in AA, they don't count down. They count up. I'm 90 days sober. I'm 6 months sober. I'm a year sober. I'm 5 years sober. They count up, because they realized on day one of joining AA that this is the start of a new lifestyle. Not we're counting down and I'm going to be sober for 42 days. And then on day 43, I'm going to celebrate and go nuts. And that's going to bring me right back to basically back to my old habits. So like the question you asked is, what we're trying to do is bring people in. It's a gateway into this lifestyle. So it's pretty restrictive. And the whole point is, look, if you're like having a bottle of wine tonight before Fit and 42, you're not drinking during Fit and 42. So when you leave Fit and 42, maybe you have a bottle a week. You know what I mean? So I'm not telling you you're never going to drink again. What I'm telling you is we're going to align what the goals that you have set for yourself, and we're going to align your actions, your habits to your goals. But I realize you're a human being and there's social circumstances, but we're going to give you tools and ways to troubleshoot, to where, like, if you're in a industry where you're constantly whining and dining, that you're not doing that at the expense of what you're trying to achieve for yourself. So Fit and 42 is like this full immersion program. And then afterwards, yes, obviously we have, like, the whole point of Fit and 42 is to enter the lifestyle and then for you to keep living it on day 43. And one of the big things we try to do, because we get a lot of people who have never been in shape, and then you watch them move and you're like, have you ever played sports? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you could have. Like, you look in the mirror and you think that's you. And what I see is this person who's wearing this like this meat suit that they shouldn't be wearing. And I'm like, man. So it's really interesting because a big portion of what we do in Fit in 42 is I want to then expose you to different aspects of fitness. Like, the goal of Fit in 42 is not to become a gym rat. The goal of Fit in 42 is for you to start feeling good about yourself and start moving around more. Like, if your kids want to hop in the pool I always say this, and I say this at our orientation. Raise your hand if you have kids. 9 out of 10 raise their hand. I say, raise your hand if you jump in the pool at a birthday party with them. None raise their hand. Like, at the end of this program, you will jump in the pool, and because no adult jumps in the pool for the kid's birthday party because they're worried about what the other adults think.
Very true.
And so what I want is, it's not about those nameless people in your movie. This is your movie. Create that experience with your kid. So we're going to build the confidence, both physically and mentally, in you, to where you don't care what other people think. All you care about is the fact that your son or daughter is smiling because mom and dad's in the pool creating an experience with them. And that's all I want, because that's what my brother and I didn't have. And so this is like, I am going to change your circle of influence through you. I'm going to get you to change. And then what's going to happen is people are going to say, why are you doing that? And then all of a sudden they say, hey, how'd you do that? And I want you to teach them, because the 12th step in a 12-step program is then to turn around and to mentor somebody else and show them how you've gotten there. And so that's exactly what we want in Fit in 42.
And it looks like from your program that you've done your research on obviously timelines for specific date timelines, as well as for nutritional guides. And it seems like there's also a little bit of influence of your wife being a teacher for you setting up like lesson plans, so to speak, with people. And you're kind of a psychologist all in the same thing, which means you probably develop friendships. It leads me to the actual point of, when I went on your website, I saw there was a specific client questionnaire. And it's interesting because this, I think, makes you unique in the fitness industry, specifically because gyms just say, hey, come on in, we'll help you. But it looks like you're being specific about the clientele you want. So what inspired you to have a questionnaire? Because I think I can see where, when you mentioned going out of business and knowing your clientele, but what do you think directly was the reason for having a questionnaire for your clients?
Well, the problem is we only have so much time in our day. And what we want is somebody who's all in. I can show you a bunch of different questionnaires, and I can show you who was successful and who wasn't based upon how they fill that out. There's some deep questions in there, and some people will write us a paragraph and they will tell us. And then honestly, that gets me jazzed. Like, you're telling me your story. I haven't even met you face to face yet. And I'm like, man, like, wow, this person's opening up to me. They don't even know me. Like, that's how much they're struggling, is like they went on this website and poured their guts out. Like, holy cow, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to meet this person and start strategizing. Like, how are we going to do this? Tell me a little bit more. Like, when can you come in? How can we do this? And then you'll get the other person who everything's a 2-word answer. And you're like, all right, you're not really in this. You're just you're window shopping. And so that's actually that's a really interesting question. I've never been asked that before. So really, that's awesome, Lou. That's one of our barriers to entry, is like, look, there's going to be not a lot, but there's some ways we want to find out how serious you are. And because, with a program like Fit in 42, we used to do TV ads, radio ads. Now we do just primarily social media, but we get calls, and literally, like I'll go through a call. I'll be like, good morning, Fit and 42, Casey speaking. How may I help you? And then the response I get is, how much? And I'm like, oh, hello. Who am I speaking with? And what we found is people are, and I hate to generalize, but we've been doing this for 13 years, owning our own businesses. People are looking for an out. They're looking for look, I called, it's too much money, so I guess I'll just continue sitting on the couch. I tried. They're looking to say, I tried, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out.
And have you had to reject anyone
Yes.
from okay.
So, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, how does that make you feel? Because, I mean, as an entrepreneur, obviously the end goal is to make money, but it seems that you have a more personal sort of emotional attachment to your business where you actually want the people to buy in. So that I'm just curious about how you feel about having to reject people.
Well, so you have to, the easiest way to go out of business is, one, try to be something for everybody. And then two, kind of bend your morals and ethics for $1. And so it's funny. Yesterday, I was talking with one of my gyms that I consult for, and I'm going to say this, but there was a time, that first 4 years that we were in business, that we went out of business, I felt like we were whores for money. And
really,
and the reason why, we were because we were struggling so much. One of my clients would say, man, I wish you had yoga here. All right, boom. Now we have a yoga class. I don't know how to do yoga. I'll figure it out. But I did it just because one person told me they were interested in it. So I bent, that's not my core competency. That's not what I'm good at. But because you wanted it, I'm going to make it happen. So hopefully, and then guess what? Now I'm miserable because I have 1 or 2 people in the class. And if I'm paying an instructor, I'm actually losing money. So that's what I mean. So what we found is, no, we will not bend our ethics. We will not bend our morals for $1. And so I just want to clarify, throughout the country, Fit and 42 cost for the 42 days is about $1,000 to $1,500, depending on what gym you go to. So it's expensive. But I'll tell you what, the first time we did it, it was 10 weeks long, and it was $177, and most people quit. Most people quit by week 6. That's why
they don't have a financial investment.
No,
I think that the price point matters.
Yes. So we have their undivided attention for $1,000, or we charge $1,500. A lot of our affiliates charge $1,000. But the reason is I want your undivided attention. I want it to sting. And so, to your point, I get worried when someone just throws me their credit card. I'm like, oh, that didn't hurt. After talking to them and telling them why they need this program and how I'm going to help them. And they're like, cool, I'm in. And they throw down their credit card. I'm like, oh, crap. This is going to be a problem. Because I like the person who sits there and they're like, you know what? Let me call my husband right now and let me figure out what we can shift around to make this happen. And I'm like, wow, you're doing a lot of work to get in this program. So you must really want it. So there's been times where, once again, we refer back to the Betty Ford Center or AA all the time. If you have somebody in AA in a meeting talking about how they got drunk last night and they went out and partied with friends and it was awesome, that person's got to go. Because they're going to taint the whole room. And we have to, in certain cases, we've had to do that during the program because we call it, we have to protect the room. We have to protect all those people who are really trying. And then there's that one person who's talking about how good the pizza tasted last night that they had, or the birthday cake. And you're like, look, you can't do this. And if it keeps up, we're like, look, we'll refund them. Say, hey, you got to go.
That's very similar to the recycling and basic training, where you get left behind by your entry group because you thought you were more important, or you wanted to be different, and so the drill instructor said, "Hey, well, it sounds like you need to do this week again."
Yes. And really, I mean, so you got to understand, this is an expensive program. I don't like saying it that way, but $1,000 for a lot of people is pretty expensive. And so if I have 15, 20, 30 people in the room and there's one bad apple, get rid of the bad apple. Because
it affects their money.
It
Yeah.
affects their money, and it affects their experience. And that's why I think we're in 25 different cities, is because we're willing to not bend when it comes to our morals, our ethics, and we're willing to stand by what we say and what we preach. And if you're not a good fit, like, I'm not saying I'm going to kick you completely out of my gym. I might kick you out of the Fit in 42 program because it doesn't sound like you're ready for it. So here, let me refund you. Let's figure out a plan B. And a lot of times when I have that conversation, that straightens them out. Like, oh, no, I love this. I'm like, well, then I can't have you talking about margaritas last night. I can't. Like, there's people. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, so but it inspired this question. So what do you do for the people, because you seem in touch with your clients? What do you do for those people who want to be in the program? Do you have ways to financially sort of help them make it happen for them? So say there's a person, hey, I can get you 500 now and 500 later. Do you have sort of a structure for people who need maybe an adjustment to help pay the complete total?
Yes, absolutely. And I, like, we have specific structures set up, but I'm going to let you in. Like, if you're sitting here and you got me pumped because, you're telling me your story and how bad you want this. And if the like, I'm going to get my money. I'm not worried about that, but I will bend the rules, so to speak, to help you be able to get in, because I know if you get in, like, we're going to dominate this and we're going to do amazing things together. So I don't want the money to be the sticking point, but in most cases, like, there are specific structures set up. Like, it has to be paid off in the 6 weeks. And,
okay.
And, if we need to go a little further than that, that's fine. But it's really hard in that sort of situation. If you're thinking about it, like, imagine going to Disneyland, but you had a payment plan, and so you're paying for Disneyland even after you got back home. It's like, it kind of loses its value. Like, I'm not even there anymore, and I'm still paying on it. So we try to keep it within the parameters of the 42 days, so they understand what they're paying for.
But you make it accessible.
Yes,
it
absolutely.
seems that you still make it accessible.
Absolutely. See, here's the thing is, there's nowadays there's like 6-week challenges and things all over the place. A lot of them are free, and obviously we went in a different route. And with that, so business wise, the money gets the buy-in from the client, because it's a lot of money for a lot of people. But then I get to do some pretty amazing things because I have the financial means to do it. Like, there's, and like you said something really, really nice earlier, that, you feel like Marines are leaders of their communities. They're the salt of the earth people. And so I really resonated with that, because a lot of what we do is we might rent a bus. And so it's Saturday workout for Fit in 42. You show up for the Fit in 42 workout, and I say, hey, guys, put this T-shirt on. So I have a T-shirt for you. We're all going to do the 5K breast cancer walk right now. We rented a bus. We paid for your entry. So that's our workout today.
That's
So my
awesome.
clients get their workout. Obviously, we were able, because I had the financial means, we were able to get 20, 30 people registered for the 5K breast cancer walk. And so now we're helping out another charity, and plus we're out in the community. And so this is the sort of stuff that we really like to do, is surprise people and make like we'll rent out a trampoline park, and that'll be our workout, but you have to bring your friends and family.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
And
awesome.
we'll rent out a rock climbing gym and say, this Saturday, meet us at the rock climbing gym, bring your friends and family. And so for me personally, the most rewarding thing I hear is sometimes a parent won't bring their kids because they won't really know, because it's the first time they've ever done something like this. They won't really know and then they'll be like, man, I can't wait to bring my kids back here. And like, boom.
So you're breaking
Yeah.
barriers for them
And
mentally.
yes. And like I said, we're not trying to be gym rats. Like, I want you to use this newfound strength and athleticism for something. We have some cool things planned. We want to take everybody paddle boarding. We go on hikes all the time. And so the idea, and so this is my way, because, you mentioned earlier that the fitness industry, which it is saturated, oversaturated. So I have a personal belief when it comes to that. Is I personally love oversaturation, because that means if there's 20 gyms in a town, that means this is a pretty health conscious area. Now all I have to do if I show up is be the best. And so then I own that town. And I have to be different, and I have to be the best. And I feel like those are the things we focus on, is not doing what everybody else is doing, but then also creating experiences. Because most people today sit on social media in their house. They're not connecting with people. And what I'm trying to do is bring it back. And then also everything I talked about, we are helping out other local businesses. We're renting out the rock climbing gym or the trampoline park. So and then we're just filling it with our members, having a great time. And guess what? Now I'm not just a gym for somebody. I'm a part of their life. And
Right, you're a level of summer camp for adults, in a sense, not
yes.
to sort of like marginalize it, but it feels that way, where you can have fun and it brings the nostalgia of that.
So for us, like I speak at some industry events and stuff, and one of the things I always try to drill is, look, if all you do is workouts, like you're gonna get lost in the shuffle. You have to be something more. Like if a member, I mean, internally we say, if a member leaves, I want it to feel like now they didn't just leave a workout, they left all their friends, and basically they're going to be going to a new school. And so we really try to, what we call, build a fence around our members and give them everything they need. I'll tell you what phase 2 is for us. Phase 2 is my members coming up to me saying, Casey, where are we vacationing this summer, and what's the date? Because
Oh, that's awesome.
I need to put my time in for work. So that's the next level for us.
And I actually was going to ask that as sort of a closure kind of question, is like, what's the 5-10 year plan for Fit and 42, and also what's your legacy? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Because it sounds like you're building relationships. You in itself are a social activity that is an extension of social media. And how can people partner with you? Because I think those things matter, of what's next for Fit and 42, how it's going to get bigger, but what the legacy is they're leaving behind.
Really, what I want is, I feel honored to be a part of people's journeys. Like, my fingerprints are on them. And what I really want, because I feel like generally, if we had 100 people in the room, 75 are female. And
Wow.
so their moms, their wives, and their business owners and their employees. But and the average age for our member is like the 45 to 55. And what I feel, and the reason why I feel like so many of our members are female is because women are generally pretty selfless. They put their career first, their husband first, their kids first, and then all of a sudden they lose themselves in that shuffle. And then all of a sudden the kids are a little older, they're a little more self-reliant, and they look in the mirror and they're like, man, where did my time go? Like, who am I? And that's probably affected the relationship with the husband. And so I feel like if I could, especially a mom, a woman, I feel like if I can get a hold of her and start teaching her things and helping her reach her goals, all of a sudden in a roundabout way, they might not ever step foot in the gym, but I have 2 other clients, in the husband and the child or kids. So just by helping one person, I've probably helped 3 or 4. And what I'm hoping is that is a catalyst in their life for them to get a little closer, to start doing more things together. And then who knows, maybe because of how mom changed and mom was all of a sudden like, put the iPads down, let's go for a walk and talk. That becomes something that the child does with his or her kids. And so that's really like, I don't need my name and lights. I just want to know that, like, if I've impacted one person, chances are there's 2 or 3 other people who are benefiting from the original person. And then that hopefully will be generational.
It makes your price point really discounted if you think about it in the grand sense of the activities you offered. Because if it's $1,000 or $1,500, but you have the family connected and you're doing other things, that price point doesn't sound expensive at all if they see the whole picture.
Yes, and so interestingly enough, so we'll talk. Like, I don't tell them about a lot of the. There's certain things we surprise them with. So I do talk, about like what I'm hoping to affect like the family fabric in your house. I do mention that, but I don't mention like the field trips and stuff because I want that to be a surprise. So if you buy in with the big picture, then all of a sudden there's all these surprises we do for you. I don't want people to join thinking, oh, we got all these little field trips and stuff. That's why I'm joining. I'm joining because I want to change your life, and I want you to know, I want you to believe in that process. And then guess what? Then I'm going to throw in all these fun things that you didn't know about because you believed in the ultimate goal and in actually, living a different lifestyle.
That's absolutely amazing. So, just to sort of sum up, what's the best way for customers, clients, prospective people, business partners to contact you in social media, YouTube? What's the best way to contact
you?
I
would just probably my email. It's Casey, CASEY at fitin42.com.
Okay.
And social media, it's Casey Washack. If you want to see, kind of read more about Fitin42, our website, which is fitin42.com. And then from there, you'll find us on Instagram. And if you hashtag, so the hashtag, so if you're like you're questioning whether, let me just say this. If you want to see what the movement's like, search the hashtag the Fitin42 life on Instagram, and you'll see thousands of people who are doing all sorts of cool things and doing things with their family because of this little movement we created.
That's awesome. And I saw you also have testimonials on your website, and you have a YouTube channel.
Yes, we do. We're I we're everywhere, man. Honestly, so yeah, I believe it's Fit in 42, our YouTube channel. You can find all that on our website. Our website will lead you to all the different social media channels.
That's awesome. Well, Casey, I want to thank you so much for giving this information, and I hope, it is my hope, that more people join the 40 tours, and I hope to see in more than 25 locations the partnerships that you have existing. It's refreshing to see a veteran do the things that they're doing in the United States after their service, because they recognize their service didn't end,
Absolutely.
once the uniform came off.
No, that's
And so I really want to thank you for it. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and I'm going to make sure that I put this on every social media platform I have, because people do like to consume information, and you've given them a lot to consume, and hopefully the more directly start taking that questionnaire and contact you, so you can get more 42ers into your fold.
I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Lou.
Well, I hope to have an opportunity to do another interview with you. And again, this is fitin42.com. And I appreciate your time. And if there's anything you want to sign off for the listeners to hear, I'll leave that space open to you now.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. And honestly, this was such a great interview. I had a ton of fun. And I'd love to come back and actually, instead of talk as much about business as I did, but more maybe as what it takes to actually change your life. I'd love to come back and do something like that, like something more tangible for maybe your listeners to leave with if they don't own a business and maybe they find themselves in a rut. But Lou, I thank you for this platform. I love your podcast, and I'm really honored and blessed to be a part of it.